What would you do if the whole world laughed at your dream? If your own family told you it was impossible? In a packed auditorium, one young man stood up and asked Steve Harvey that very question. The entire room went silent. And then Steve Harvey did something so powerful. It left the audience in tears and changed that young man's life forever. The night was running smoothly. Steve cracked a few jokes, had the audience roaring with laughter, then shifted into one of his powerful motivational stories. Cameras flashed, people cheered, and the entire atmosphere was electric. But then, during the Q&A session, everything changed. A young man, maybe no older than 20, stood up. He clutched the microphone tightly, as if it were the only thing keeping him steady. His hands shook, his voice cracked, and for a moment he almost looked like he might sit down without saying a word. But then, gathering his courage, he spoke. "Mr. Harvey," he began softly, "what do you do when everyone tells you your dream is impossible?" The words cut through the laughter and chatter like a knife. The room grew still. People shifted in their seats, leaning forward. The spotlight seemed to shine brighter on the young man, and then on Steve Harvey. It was no longer just a question. It was a cry for help. The kind of question that carried years of doubt, rejection, and loneliness. The crowd waited. Some expected Steve to crack a joke to lighten the mood. Others thought he might give a quick answer about working hard or believing in yourself. But that's not what happened. Steve Harvey froze. He looked straight at the young man, his expression suddenly serious. For the first time that night, there was no smile, no witty comeback. Just silence. The audience grew restless. Whispers spread. Why isn't he answering? Did the question upset him? Then, without saying a word, Steve Harvey reached for his microphone, set it gently down, and began to walk off the stage. Gasps filled the room. The young man lowered his head, embarrassed, believing he had made a mistake. But no one was prepared for what Steve Harvey was about to do next. Steve Harvey's sudden silence left the audience unsettled. Just moments ago, the room was filled with laughter and applause. Now you could feel the tension pressing down like a heavy weight. Steve placed the microphone carefully on the stool beside him. He didn't look angry, but his face was unreadable. Without a single word, he turned and began walking toward the side of the stage. The crowd gasped. Cameras followed his every move. People whispered frantically, trying to understand what was happening. "Is he upset?" one woman murmured. "Did the kid say something wrong?" another asked. The young man who had asked the question felt his heart sink. His hands dropped to his sides and his face turned pale. He thought he had ruined the entire event, embarrassed himself, and perhaps even offended his hero. His dream of hearing advice from Steve Harvey felt shattered. Meanwhile, the room buzzed with confusion. Some audience members leaned forward in disbelief, while others pulled out their phones to capture the moment. Everyone wondered the same thing. Why would Steve Harvey walk out now right after such a powerful question? But then something unexpected happened. Just when people thought the show might be over, Steve Harvey reappeared. And this time, he wasn't alone. In his hands, Steve carried a simple wooden chair. The audience clapped in relief, though still puzzled. What was he doing with a chair? He didn't speak right away. Instead, he walked across the stage with deliberate steps, the spotlight following him, making the chair seem almost symbolic. He carried it right to the edge of the stage, then descended the steps into the audience. The crowd went silent again. Everyone's eyes followed him. Steve Harvey walked directly to the young man who had asked the question and placed the chair in front of him. Then, he sat down, face to face, no cameras, no stage lights, just a man speaking to another man. The young man's eyes widened. The embarrassment he felt moments ago turned into shock. Steve Harvey leaned in, his voice low but commanding enough for the audience to hear. "Son," Steve said, "I've been exactly where you are, nervous, unsure, surrounded by people telling me I couldn't do it." The room fell into complete silence again. But this time it wasn't confusion, it was respect. What Steve was about to say wasn't just for that one young man. It was for everyone in the room, and it all started with a chair. Steve Harvey leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes locked on the young man in front of him. The room was silent, hundreds of people holding their breath, waiting to hear what he would say. "Son," Steve began, his voice calm but steady, "let me tell you something. I've been where you are right now, nervous, unsure, surrounded by people who told me I couldn't do it. The young man swallowed hard. His hands still shook, but now it wasn't from fear. It was from anticipation. Steve continued, his tone growing stronger with every word. When I was your age, I was broke. I wasn't living in a nice house. I didn't have TV shows or radio shows. I was living out of my car. I'd wake up in the morning with no money in my pocket, no food in my stomach, and no clue how I was going to make it through the day. And when I told people I wanted to be on television, they laughed at me. They told me I wasn't smart enough, wasn't rich enough, wasn't good enough. They called my dream impossible. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Many of them already knew Steve's story, but hearing it told this way, so raw, so personal, made it feel brand new. Steve's eyes stayed locked on the young man. If I had listened to those people, I wouldn't be standing here today. I wouldn't have achieved a single thing. I would have let their small minds trap me into living a small life. The young man's lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say something, but Steve lifted a finger. Listen, he said firmly, God didn't give them your dream. He gave it to you, and when he puts a dream inside your heart, it's not up for a vote. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You just need the faith to believe in it and the courage to chase it. The crowd erupted into applause, but Steve held up his hand. No, hold that applause, because this ain't about me. It's about him. And it's about you. The audience grew quiet again, hanging on every word. Steve leaned closer, his voice dropping lower, filled with intensity. Son, never forget this. Small minds will always try to convince you your dream is too big. That's not because of you. That's because they can't see themselves doing it. But your dream, that's yours. Protect it, guard it, fight for it. Because if you don't, nobody else will. The young man's eyes welled up with tears. For the first time that evening, he felt seen, not just as a fan in the crowd, but as someone whose dream mattered, and with that, Steve Harvey turned to the audience and prepared to deliver a lesson that wasn't just for one person, but for everyone in the room. Steve Harvey slowly rose from the chair. The young man stayed seated, staring up at him with tears in his eyes, while the rest of the crowd waited, silent and breathless. Steve picked up the microphone again, but this time his voice wasn't playful or comedic. It carried the weight of experience, of pain and of triumph. When I was living in my car, he said, I didn't have much. I had a pillow, a blanket, and a dream. That dream was all I had to keep me going. And every single day, people told me I'd never make it. They told me, Steve, you need to be realistic. Get yourself a normal job. Stop chasing something that will never happen. He paused, scanning the audience. Some nodded in recognition, others leaned forward with tears in their eyes. But let me tell you something, Steve continued, his voice rising with passion. If I had listened to them, you wouldn't even know my name right now. If I had listened to them, there would be no Family Feud, no books, no radio show, no TV. If I had listened to them, I'd still be broke, sitting in the back of somebody's kitchen, wondering what my life could have been. The crowd erupted in applause, but Steve quickly lifted his hand to quiet them again. No, don't clap for me. Clap for yourselves, because every single one of you has a dream inside you. And right now, I know some of you are sitting here with people in your life who keep telling you it's impossible. People who tell you you're not good enough. People who make you feel like you don't belong in the front row of life. The room was still. His words weren't just a speech anymore. They were cutting straight into the hearts of the people listening. Listen to me carefully, Steve said, lowering his voice. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never let anyone talk you out of your calling. Because God didn't put your dream in them, He put it in you. And that means it's yours to carry, yours to protect, and yours to make real. The energy in the room shifted. People nodded, some wiped tears, and a few whispered affirmations under their breath. Steve stepped closer to the front of the stage, looking directly into the cameras, as if he were speaking not just to the audience in the room, but to the world beyond. Your dream is your responsibility, not theirs. So if someone tells you it's impossible, smile at them, thank them, and then go do it anyway. Because the best way to prove a hater wrong is by succeeding in spite of them. The audience exploded with cheers, this time unstoppable. People rose to their feet, clapping and shouting as Steve Harvey delivered one final line that shook the entire auditorium. Don't let small minds shrink your big destiny. The auditorium was no longer the same place it had been when the night began. What started as a comedy-filled motivational event had transformed into something deeper, something unforgettable. The audience was already on its feet, clapping and cheering. Some had tears streaming down their faces. Others shouted, "Amen!" and "That's right," as Steve Harvey stood tall in the spotlight, gripping the microphone like it was an extension of his very soul. But Steve wasn't done. He raised his hand, motioning for silence. Slowly, the applause faded, leaving only the hum of anticipation in the air. He turned back to the young man who had asked the question, the one who moments earlier sat trembling, unsure if he even belonged in that room. Steve placed a hand gently on his shoulder and looked him dead in the eyes. "Son," he said, his voice low but powerful, "don't you ever forget this moment. Don't you ever forget what you feel right now, because this is proof that your dream matters. It matters so much the devil will send people to discourage you. He'll use your friends, your family, even strangers, to make you believe you don't deserve it. But if you stand firm, if you hold on to your vision, you will see it through. Do you understand me?" The young man nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. The crowd clapped again, softer this time, like an echo of support. Steve turned back toward the sea of faces before him, his energy filling the entire room. "Let me leave you all with this," he said, his tone sharp now, commanding attention. "If someone takes away your stage, build your own. If they laugh at your dream, work until they clap. And if they take away your chair," he paused, eyes sweeping across the audience, "then you bring your own." The room erupted. This time, nothing could stop the roar of applause. People stomped their feet, clapped their hands, and shouted his name. The young man stood too, his posture taller, his face shining with new confidence. For the first time all night, he wasn't the nervous kid with shaky hands. He was the dreamer Steve Harvey had just ignited. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. Clips of Steve's words would soon flood the internet, spreading like wildfire across social media. But inside that auditorium, no phone, no recording, no headline could capture the electricity of the moment. It wasn't just a speech. It wasn't just advice. It was a turning point for the young man, for everyone in the room, and for anyone who would one day hear Steve Harvey's words. As Steve stepped back toward the stage, he looked at the audience one final time, smiled and said, "Dream big, y'all, because your dream is waiting for you. Now go chase it." The standing ovation shook the walls, and in that moment, Steve Harvey didn't just entertain. He inspired an entire generation to believe again. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.